everybody, Audrey here, and today we are going to be making carnivorous gardens. Carnivorous plants are a unique selection of houseplants that are rather difficult to care for, but with the terrarium we will be making today, it's going to be a little bit easier for them to survive in your home. So we have a couple different examples of carnivorous plants here today. We have this little pitcher plant that we are going to be using. This one is especially cute and it's going to grow quite a bit bigger. We also have examples of another kind of pitcher plant right here. And then of course the absolute classic, the Venus flytrap. These ones are rather small right now. They're getting a lot of new growth as the days are starting to get longer, and they will grow up a fair amount. And then my personal favorite is the sticky trap sundew, as you can see here. The insects will just fly onto it and they'll digest them. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's a very interesting selection of plants. So the reason that carnivorous plants display these behaviors is because they need the nutrients from eating the insects. Naturally in their environment, they live in bogs, and we'll see the different soil materials here today that come without nutrients that will express the need for them to continue growing these traps to catch the insects. So our soil material that we are using today is going to be peat moss, and peat moss is a building block of actually all soil materials. It is very, very, very soft, but you'll notice that unlike many other soils that you will find, it has no little white spots or yellow or green. It has no fertilizer, no perlite, no vermiculite in it. This is just one of the base building blocks of soil, and it's what we need to keep carnivorous plants at home because it doesn't have any nutrients in it, like we said. It's very, very soft and kind of fun to play with, but it can dry out very quickly. So first we are going to lay down a small layer of charcoal. This is something that we do for all closed terrariums, nothing with a drainage hole on the bottom here. So you may not use the entire bag, but if you want to just fill it all the way up, that's totally fine. I'm just going to put this small layer, kind of toss it around to create this nice black line at the bottom of our container. Then what I'm going to do is dump out the pre-measured amount of peat moss into here. So you're going to want a couple of inches. Don't go anywhere past about halfway. I think I'm going to add just a tish more to really pack it in there. The plants are very, very small, but you want to be creating these bog-like environments for them so that they really have a lot of moisture to hold on to when they need it. So we're going to take our little 2-inch plant here and just kind of squeeze the edges so that it loosens it up to pop him right out of there. And you'll notice that the carnivorous plants are not held in the soil material. They're actually held in what's called sphagnum moss, which is also a material that we're going to be using today. The reason that they are in this media instead of your kind of typical soil is because this actually stays a lot wetter than just peat moss does, and we're going to be using it later on. But you just kind of want to gently unravel, and it's very hard to see the roots in many of these plants. So if you just kind of want to take it apart, it'll fall apart very naturally. Whatever shape it goes into, that's the way that it wants to be. So listen to your plant, okay? So going to tuck it in here. Make just a small crater. I recommend just putting it in the middle so that it has plenty of room to grow all the way out. You can either put it like up here above the plant or below in the actual container. I personally recommend having it more below in the container to really keep it a lot more humid. So now that we have them in there, I'm just going to tuck the peat moss kind of around. Make sure that everybody is all covered up, but make sure that none of the leaves are too covered. So that, and we're going to pop out our little pitcher right here. He'll sit on the side. I would say that's rather centered. That's going to be all of the room that he needs in there. And now for our last step, this is a bag of sphagnum moss that we were talking about before. It is also a bog material that you are going to put into the terrarium to really lock in the moisture. It's going to stay more moist than just the peat moss. So I like to just put it on the top. Some people like to put it in between their charcoal and their peat moss layers as well. I don't personally think that is necessary, but putting it on the top is really helpful just to make the plant feel a little bit more at home. If you can kind of imagine a very watery pond, this is kind of how those guys like to be. So this is really the environment that we are creating for them. That's why I think it's so important for carnivorous plants especially to have kind of their own terrarium setting so that they can get all of the moisture that they really, really want. It's also good to put multiple of them in a container, but for this guy, I really suspect that this pitcher plant is going to grow a fair amount in the next year. So I'm going to plant him all by himself because I just think that he's going to be a little bit selfish with the water, so I think he's going to like that a little bit more. I am going to use all of mine to cover up all the dirt so that it just doesn't dry out too fast. And you will notice that coming out of the bag, the sphagnum moss can be quite dry, actually. And we are going to take care of that issue when we are done. Tuck everything in. And again, I just like to have all of my soil covered. And I really think the kind of warm coloring of the sphagnum moss gives a really nice contrast to the green of the plant. Lots more vibrant looking, I think, against that kind of background. So this is our completed terrarium. The final step of owning a carnivorous plant is actually going to be watering it with distilled water. So that's something that you can get from just about any gas station or your local general store. And you are just going to water it in enough where everything gets moist. Make sure there's not too much sitting water, just enough, and have it stay moist pretty much all the time with that distilled water. So thank you very much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed making your carnivorous garden.